Hello everyone and welcome to this program Approach on Anthropology. I'm Dr. Sudhir Kumar and I'm going to discuss today economic organization. See, economic organization according to cultural materialists, it is the base of the society or the culture, right? So, economic organization. See, every culture have economic organization, whether our modern civilized society or primitive or the simple society. Even in the primitive times, people produce something, they distribute and exchange that thing and consume, right? So you can say economy is universal, or you can say economic organization is universal. It is found in all societies, right? So it is universal. Now, what economic organization do? So it deals with the production, distribution and consumption of goods, right? Distribution and exchange, you can say. So these primary functions take place in every society irrespective of the level of development, right? Now let me tell you one important thing, that according to the cultural materialists, like even Marx was a cultural materialist, right? But in anthropology, you hear Marvin Harris, right? His school of cultural materialism we study. But not only Marvin Harris we have as a cultural materialist, rather we have L.D. White, who was a neo-evolutionist, and even Julian Stewart. Right? It says that the material conditions is the base of the culture, right, on which the other aspects of culture are built, right? They say that the material conditions form the infrastructure of our culture or society. This is structure, where you have social organization, and this is superstructure, where you have beliefs, art, philosophy, etc., ethos, etc., right? So cultural materialists believe that economic organization is the base of any culture, any society. Now, economic organization is universal, but the nature of functions, the complexity may vary from one society to the other. Now in today's session, I will take one question, right? And that question is the debate between the formalist and substantivists, right? That is a tricky question for many of you. So let me tell how you can address that question, and you can fetch decent marks in that. Formalist, substantivist debate. See, let me tell you first what this debate is and how it was built and how will you address this question. See, there's a debate that how we can study the primitive economic system, or you can say primitive societies and their economy. How you can understand that? So the debate lies on that. how you can understand these primitive societies and their economy. So the primitive societies or primitive economy, according to one school, says that neo-modern economic principles can be used to study or understand the primitive societies and their economy. Right? Now, what are these neo-modern economic principles? What is the basis of it? It believes in the principle of scarcity, that scarcity is universal. The human wants, human demands are infinite, right? So the resources are scarce, right? And if the resources are scarce, then economy run by the demand and supply, right? And this also believes that human being is a rational being, right? On the basis of this demand and supply, this rational being applies his or her mind in order to maximize the profit, right? So rationality for maximizing the profit. Right? You can simply say that this maximizing profit, demand and supply, these are the market principles. In a sense, you can say that these economic principles, they consider that economic system is separate. It is a separate, a distinct entity in that culture. So that is another, you can say, aspect of this formal economics, or you can say neo-modern economics, or you can say Adam Smith and Keynesian economic theory that can be applied to study the simple societies and their economy. That is one side, right? The other side is substantivist side. They consider that first thing, that economic system is part of larger social system. It is deeply rooted in the social sphere, and economic system is not separate. It is not distinct. See, in our country, we have this Ministry of Economic Affairs, right? But in simple societies, the economy is connected to their religion. It is connected to their social beliefs. I give you one example, that Malay Paharia, they do not plow their land. Why they do not plow their land? The reason is that they believe that plowing is like tearing the chest of Mother Earth, right? Plowing is like tearing the chest of Mother Earth. So that belief is somehow not rational. It is not rational. Why? Because rationality demands that you plow and increase or maximize your profit and yield. But they are not doing it. That means their economic behavior is connected to their belief, their religion, right? Their social sphere. It is not separate. Okay, so the first thing is that economic system is not a distinct sphere of life, rather it is the part of larger socio-cultural milieu, right? It is embedded into it. It is integral part of the entire socio-cultural environment. It is not a separate thing. That is the first and the foremost thing that you have to understand. Second thing is that this principle of scarcity. This principle of scarcity is universal according to this formal theory or this neo-modern economic theory, right? But according to Marshall Sahlins, this scarcity is not universal. Scarcity according to Marshall Sahlins is not universal. Rather, what Marshall Sahlins says, Marshall Salin says that the simple societies are actually, or originally, they are affluent societies because their resources are sufficient to meet their limited demands. So he's talking about the two things: one, limited demand, and sufficiency of resources. So this scarcity, according to Marshall Salins, is not universal. It is not universal. Even the rationality, if you say that rationality, then where is the rationality when we are talking about Malayer Paharia? They are not making rational decisions, right? In a kinship group of Kung, of Kalahari, this Africa, the Kung, they share their hunt with all of their kinsmen. Where is the rationality in that? Right? So basically that principle is again negated by the substantivist. The market principle. See, in simple societies, the reciprocity and especially the generalized reciprocity work. So do you think that they believe in these market principles of demand and supply? Whatever is produced within that band, within that small group of kins, everything is equally shared. So that demand and supply principle is not applicable, right? Now, even if you say that this supports, formalists say something, substantivists say something, both counter each other. So what is the conclusion? Who wins? Whether formalists win or substantivists win. So which one explains better? That is the fundamental question that you should ask while concluding on this question, right? See, both of these theories were criticized by neo-Marxists like Godelier and Friedman. These approaches were criticized by the cultural ecologists like Roy Rappaport and Andrew Vaidya. It was criticized by political economy approach of Anna Singh. So all of that say that no, there can be other ways to understand the simple economy or simple economic organization. So you can say that both approaches have its own proponents and both can be combinedly used to understand the simple societies along with other approaches that were suggested by neo-Marxists, political ecology approach or political economy approach of Anna Singh, and even cultural ecology approach, right? You can say the society or culture, whether it is simple or you can say the modern society, is a complex entity. And understanding this complex human being, whether we live in a simple society or in a complex society, it requires, you can say, multiple approaches, right? We can look at the social reality from multiple perspectives. You can say that what Clifford Geertz say, that culture is like a text, right? And we can understand that text from multiple perspectives. There can be many interpretations of that text, right? Now, this is the background, but from where this debate started, most of you people must be waiting that why I did not mention Karl Polanyi, The Great Transformation, that book that he wrote, right? So let me take this question, and how will you address this? See, when you are going to write this question, in the introduction, you can start that from where this debate came into being in anthropology. So, Karl Polanyi, he wrote a book, The Great Transformation, and in that book that he wrote in 1944, that he wrote in 1944. In that book, he says that the economics have two meaning, formal and substantive. Okay, so you can say that a debate was triggered in that book, right, between formalists and substantivists. Okay, the formalists believe that the simple societies can be understood using the modern economic principles, whereas substantivists like Karl Polanyi himself considered himself, right, he himself was a substantivist. So basically he says that the term economics have two meanings, right, formal and substantive. So from there this debate started, right. Even this debate was triggered here, but the discussion, the anthropological discussion, anthropological debate is even older than that. How? See, after this introduction, you can trace back the beginning, right? You just write that he brought into fore this debate, and he is tracing back now, right? He is tracing back that Malinowski, when he was doing field work, in Trobriand Islands, so there he observed that economic system of the Trobrianders is embedded, right? He see the culture as an integral whole, right? So in that respect, he saw that economic aspect is rooted. He saw that Trobrianders, when they go for a fishing expedition, so they perform magic, right? And that magic was to ward off evils. So their economic behavior is guided by the magic. Even when they plant some crops, they perform some sort of magic so that the crop is protected from the uncertain weather, right? So what he was trying to say, what he was trying to convey is that it is that their economy and belief is connected. That means culture is the integral whole. It consists of various parts which are interrelated, interacting, right, and interrooted, you can say. His approach was rejected by Herkowitz. Herkowitz was American anthropologist, and he rejected his approach, and he says that no, what Malinowski is saying, that the people of Trobriand Islands, when they go out for fishing expedition, they perform magic. Malinowski argues that they perform magic so that unki anxiety dur ho jaye. They don't have any fear when they go into the open oceans. But you understand that what argument Herkowitz put forth. Herkowitz says that they perform magic so that they get good harvest, right? When they go out, they get good amount of fish catch. That is why they perform magic. So don't you see that there is a rationality in their behavior? So that is a good argument. So starting is like this, right? Later on, Karl Polanyi wrote this great transformation, and he gave this debate, right? So that will be your introduction and first paragraph, and after that you will be talking about this debate. The debate centers around the understanding, or you can say study. It's an academic debate. It's an academic debate to study the simple societies, right? And that debate you can understand through following headings. First is that the nature of economic system. Second is the principle of scarcity. Third is the principle of rationality. And fourth is the principle of, you can say, market. In these four major points, you can discuss or you can talk about the differences between these two approaches. So formalists, they say that economic system is a separate sphere of life, right? Yes, they consider that it is embedded in the social milieu, right? Principle of scarcity, they consider that it is a universal principle, whereas according to Marshall Sahlins, it is not, you can say, Marshall Sahlins says that it is not universal. Rather, the simple societies are originally affluent societies because their wants are limited and resources are sufficient to fulfill their wants, right? Principle of rationality, right? They say that it is also universal. All men are universally, they think about their profit and loss, and every decision that they take is on the basis of that profit and loss. Whereas they say no, their economic rationality, it is not universal. Whatever decision they take, that is guided by various factors. It is not only the profit, right? Profit can be one thing, but it is not the sole thing. So that is where they say, you can quote that example of Malays, right? You can also give example of Trobriand Islanders performing magic, right, to ward off any uncertainty when they go on fishing expedition. Market, right? You can say demand and supply, right? In modern society, demand supply determine the market price or market availability of goods. Here, it is not guided by demand and supply, right? This debate is between these two, right? You can say that in simple societies, it is not guided by that. They say no, demand and supply do play an important role even in the simple societies, right? So that is where the debate is there. Now let us move on to the conclusion remark, how we can say that how this debate settles, right? So both of these approaches were criticized. Who were criticizing? Okay, so criticism of both of these approaches. See, both of these approaches were criticized by neo-Marxists like Godelier and Friedman. They are criticized by the cultural ecologists like Roy Rappaport. You can say not criticism, but you can say that they gave an alternative to understand the economy of the simple societies, right? Roy Rappaport studied the Sembaga pig ritual, where thousands of pigs were slaughtered, right? So how will you understand that? Because if you say that lots of food is being wasted, right? Thousands of pigs were slaughtered. So if you have to understand, then you have to understand that ecological aspect also. Okay, so they gave an alternative to think about the primitive society. Even political economy approach of Anna Singh she studied Borneo and the people Meratas Dayak of Borneo, right, where how their economic behavior was shaped by the colonial governments, right? The lumbering activity, how it was shaped by the colonial government and their policies, that is also important. See, what these people are trying to say, that economy is not closed. What substantivists see, that it is the socio-cultural milieu, that milieu is not constant. There are outside influences. Right? Economy is being shaped constantly by outside influences. That is told by this political economy approach. Even this ecology plays a role. Right? The new Marxists, they talk about the infrastructure aspect. Right? They want to understand the entire process. They don't want to understand the economy in a static sense. So that is why you can say these three approaches gave the new dimensions or new ideas to understand the simple societies and various aspects of them. So in the conclusion you can say that the combination of the approaches can be useful to understand the complexity of human behavior, whether it is in the simple society or in the complex society. That is how you can conclude this debate. Okay, so this is it for today. Tomorrow we'll meet again with the new topic. Thank you. All the best.